Okay, I understand that y'all have y'all need to take something up with the court before we bring the jury back in.
Yes, Your Honor. We had a chance to meet with defense counsel yesterday as we are about to call a forensic technician that processed the scene at 122 Canebrake. She was responsible for taking all the photographs of the scene as it was. And like I said, we went through each of them with defense counsel, and there are a few where they've raised an objection that specifically states Exhibit 63, 64, 65, and 66. And I'll pass them up to the court. I'm also going to pass up to Your Honor.
Thank you.
A copy of State v. Haight or Hawes, and that is 423. That is 423 SC 118. A copy of defense counsel as well. The state believes that based on Hawes and based on the circumstances of this case, that the specific photograph should be introduced to the jury as is. State v. Hawes is a very similar case with regard to the cause of death, and that it was a stabbing death, and the Supreme Court confirmed that the admission of the photographs was proper, and I'll direct the court specifically to Head Note 6, where the photographs of the victim who was stabbed to death should have been admitted. It was not an abuse of discretion, where they went to show the circumstances of the crime scene and the location of the body. They go towards the issue of malice in this case. The state intends to elicit testimony from the forensic technician as to the significance of where the body was found, the actions that were likely to have taken after Ms. Parcell was stabbed with regard to the body, and the significance of what the blood pattern indicated. Again, I believe State v. Hawes is on point with this specific issue, and especially where we are offering testimony to extrapolate inferences that we would provide to the jury as to the circumstances surrounding Ms. Parcell's death.
Defense counsel.
Your Honor, our position is just under a 403 analysis. I'm not sure there's any, I'm not sure what the relevance is. They say it goes to malice, but they can certainly describe the crime scene without having to show those photographs. So I would say under a 403 analysis, very little probative value to those pictures, and whatever probative value is outweighed by the potential prejudicial effect. I would also note the state has prepared for 2 of those photographs. They've prepared another set of photographs with the deceased blocked out of the photograph. So if Your Honor does see probative value, we would ask that those be substituted for the those 2 photographs. And I would also add, they have other photographs of that room that are taken from a wider angle and from that are not close-ups of the of those areas that they are seeking to point out. So we would ask that that those other photographs that they have, which I think they can show to the court if the court needs to see them, but they would be sufficient to point out what they want to show to the jury.
I mean, obviously, this is the first time I'm looking at the photos. What is, I guess, the difference between 63 and 64 is you've got the victim is in it.
That's correct, Your Honor. These photographs all go to show, and what the state's going to argue is the actions that were taken after Ms. Parcell was stabbed, and it specifically goes towards the placement and the actions taken towards her body after that stabbing. As you know, the state is charged with proving premeditation to this murder. The actions that the state is alleging Mr. Hughes took, obviously during this incident, but afterwards, are highly probative to show his state of mind and the deliberation that he took before committing this murder and the steps that he took afterwards. In a normal instance, if this were simply a spur of the moment stabbing or an instance where there isn't evidence, or the state would proffer that there is evidence in this case that actions were taken after the act itself to go to show premeditation, I could see where it would be a different analysis. But these specific photographs are clearly probative of those actions that we are arguing that Mr. Hughes took in this instance. So again, the state would argue that while we do have several photographs that show different angles, they are all probative. And I don't believe that the danger of unfair prejudice or spurring the emotions of the jury substantially outweighs that probative value that we're putting forth to the jury.
Okay. I'm gonna take a quick break and then I'll be back, okay?
And Your Honor, we would ask that there are some other photographs that we are not objecting to. We would ask that Your Honor be allowed to view those as well, so you can look at those in conjunction with the ones you've been given to see if those are necessary as the state says. And also, I would just add that premeditation is not an element of murder, so they don't. I think that's not a correct statement to say they have to prove premeditation.
Yeah, I'm happy to pass these up.
Any response to that?
I will say that malice is
Malice is definitely,
an element that the state is charged with proving, and evidence to that effect. It's obviously extremely valuable, and the evidence from this crime scene is a huge portion of what the state wants to offer to the jury for them to make that inference as to malice in this murder. So again, I passed up all the photographs of the specific crime scene that the state intends to introduce, as well as the two photos upon Your Honor's ruling that those two specific photos need to be redacted. We have done that.
well, you've redacted 67 and 68, and those are coming in by agreement.
Well, only if you rule the other ones are not.
I got you. Okay.
Yes, we would not have an objection to the ones where the deceased is blocked out of the photograph.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Kalen Ford.
Please stop at the end of the bench. Place your left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Thank you. Please be seated. Please state your name for the record.
Caitlin Ford.
Ms. Ford, good morning.
Good morning.
Could you tell the jury where you currently are employed
I work at Albuquerque Police Department.
and what do you do for them?
I'm a crime scene specialist.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that for the Albuquerque Police Department?
About 2 years.
Where were you working in 2021
Here at Greenville County Forensics
and what specific role?
as a forensic technician.
And could you describe for the jury, what kind of actions you take, what your duties are as a forensic technician when you were with the Greenville County Sheriff's Office?
So we respond to crime scenes within the county limits. Depending on the crime scene, we can do things such as take photographs, process for fingerprints, collect evidence, just depending on what that specific scene is.
So it's safe to say that collection of evidence on specific crime scenes is one of your primary roles.
Correct.
And same thing would be taking pictures in accordance with that?
Yes,
duty? Were you in that role on October 13th of 2021?
I was.
And how are you involved with the present case specifically related to the crime scene on October 13th of 2021?
I was the primary crime scene investigator for this case.
So you were tasked with processing the home at 122 Canebrake?
I was.
And in your role as a forensic technician, are you subjected to trainings and continued education for that role?
Yes, I have my bachelor's in science and forensic and investigative science. In the past, I've held certifications in bloodstain pattern analysis and fingerprint analysis, and I am currently part of a specialized unit called the Major Crime Scene Team in Albuquerque that responds to all homicides and officer-involved incidents.
Approximately how many crime scenes do you process in a given year?
I would say over 400.
So can you describe for this jury, specifically related to October 13th of 2021, what your process was on arriving at 122 Canebrake and steps you took with your specific role?
So when I arrived on scene, I met with officers and detectives on scene just to get a brief run through of what was going on. After that point, myself and officers did an initial walkthrough of the scene just to see the layout of the house and where things were located.
So when you were doing the layout of the house and going through there, did you take photographs of the outside of the house?
Yes,
And if I show those to you, would you recognize them?
I would.
Let's show defense counsel what is State's Exhibit 69 through 84. First witness was 69 through 84. Could you take your time, review those, and let me know if those are the pictures that you took of the outside of the Canebrake home?
Yes, these are the photographs that I took of the exterior.
So that was what the Canebrake home looked like when you arrived on the scene October 13th of 2021?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would move into evidence State's Exhibit 69 through 84. Counsel?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right. 69 through 84. Ms. Ford, I'm going to go through these with you. And if you like, I have a pointer here, if you need to use it. Starting with State's Exhibit 69. Okay. What is State's Exhibit 69 a picture of?
So that is a photograph of the gray Lexus that was parked in the driveway.
Were you able to identify in the course of the investigation there who was driving the gray Lexus that day?
Yes, it was the victim.
Showing you State's Exhibit 70.
That was the red Mercedes that was parked in the driveway as well.
Who was driving that vehicle?
Mr. Post.
State's Exhibit 71.
That is the front side of the residence showing the windows along the front door.
72.
That is a close-up of the front door.
73.
That is a photograph of the exterior side of the front door handle.
74.
That is the gate on the right side of the residence. If you're standing facing it from the roadway, just showing the gate into the backyard area.
So is that, are you staring at Canebrake Drive there?
Yes,
Is that the red Mercedes in the driveway?
yes.
75.
That is the photograph of the back or side door of the residence.
And at this time, had the initial deputies already gone through the house?
Yes,
76.
that is a photograph of the backyard.
And so would this be looking to the opposite side that we were just reviewing where the driveway,
Yeah.
away from the driveway?
Yes, away from the driveway.
77.
That is a photograph of you standing at that gate that we just viewed, looking at the end of the the end of the backyard.
78.
That is just showing a close-up of the creek and what you can see from the backyard.
We're going to go to State's Exhibit 80.
That is the gate on the opposite side of the house, leading into the backyard.
So that's looking into the backyard.
Yes,
81.
that is just showing another close-up of the backyard along with the second-story porch.
82.
That is a photograph of the nook that is underneath the second-story porch on the back side of the house.
Now you called it a nook.
Yes,
If I'm standing on Canebrake Drive, can I see somebody under there?
no, you cannot.
And if I'm standing, let me go back to State's Exhibit 78. In the backyard there, what was the collection of houses like, I'll say, with relation to the backyard of the house?
It was
Or how close in proximity were other neighbors?
They weren't that close. They were separated by both of their own backyards, including that woodsy area and a creek.
Go to State's Exhibit 83.
So that's just another close-up of that nook area.
State's Exhibit 84.
And now we've moved out into the front yard, and that's just showing a broader photograph of that gate on the left side of the house.
So from where you're standing there, taking State's Exhibit 84, could you see into that nook there that we were just reviewing?
No, you cannot.
After reviewing the outside of the house, did you thereafter go inside the house and do the same process of taking photographs and doing the inside the house?
Yes.
If I showed you those photographs, would you recognize them?
Yes.
I'm going to show defense counsel what is state's exhibit 40, or excuse me, 40. Let me get this right. 30. States 38 through 62 and states 63 and 66. Showing you the same. Could you please review those and let me know if those are the photos you took?
Yes, these are the photographs that I took.
So that was the state of the scene when you entered that day?
Yes.
Now, at this time, the state moves into evidence, State's Exhibit 38 through 62, as well as 63 and 66.
I'm sorry, you're one moment, please. Your Honor, just subject to our objections that we discussed earlier and the reasons behind so on exhibits 63 and 66, no other objection.
Okay, and you're protected on the record. 38 through 62, comes into evidence as well. So it's pretty
Okay, same thing, Board, I'm gonna go through these with you one by one. Walk through the house with you. Showing you States Exhibit 40.
So that is a photograph of the interior side of the front door, which is in a room that I refer to in my report as the front sitting room.
The city.
Yes,
Exhibit 38.
that is a close-up of the door handle to that front door, showing that it was in the locked position.
States Exhibit 39.
So this is a photograph of the interior of that front sitting room, where you can see the victim and you can see some apparent drag marks as well.
States Exhibit 41.
That is just a different view of the same thing, showing there are stains, apparent blood stains on the couch, as well as the pulling underneath of the couch, the drag marks, and you can see right there is one of the flower stems.
So you noted, you said drag marks
Yes.
in this photo. Could you explain that a little bit more, how you derived that based on the pattern of the blood that is displayed in this photo?
So yes, as I referred to earlier, there's a pool of blood right there underneath of the couch. From that pool of blood, that blood being on the victim's clothing, when she was moved from that original location, it created the drag marks that you can see there on the floor. And then on top of these drag marks right here are what we refer to as drip stains. That just means that an object or person or thing that had blood on it, that blood volume dripped on top of those drag marks.
You said you identified some flowers or flower stems in this photograph. Could you show me specifically where they are? Is this what you're referring to right here?
Yes.
Okay. Showing you States Exhibit 42.
So that is a close-up of the victim's right hand, mainly noting the chipped thumb fingernail, which is something that really stood out to me on scene.
Why does this stand out to you?
Broken fingernails can be a sign of a defensive, that the person tried to defend themselves. So that's what that broken fingernail kind of portrayed to me.
Are fingernails something you commonly collect in processing a murder scene?
Yes, it's standard procedure, but considering that one of them was broken, it became apparent that we really need to focus on those fingernails.
Showing you States Exhibit 49.
So this is another photograph of that far wall in the sitting room. Again, just showing that blood pooling underneath the couch. And then in this photograph, you can also see some more of the rose petals and the leaves that are leading into the hallway.
Were you able to find the victim's phone at the scene?
Yes, the victim's phone, it's kind of hard to see, but it is right there in that blood pool.
Right here?
Yes,
Were you able to collect it?
yes, it was collected.
Who did you subsequently give it to?
I gave it to Investigator Sparkman.
I want to bring your attention specifically to the couch
Yes.
there. What do you notice about the accumulation of blood and what the significance of the location of the blood as it relates to the couch?
So with that blood volume being located there, we call that a pooling of blood. The coagulation of the blood tells me that a major artery was hit, and that also that is the site of where the initial incident occurred. Along with that, you can see some disturbances in the blood there that also signifies that the couch was most likely moved after the incident.
Show you States Exhibit 50.
So this is a close-up of that couch and coffee table area, showing the flower stems that were partially located underneath of that orange pillow and underneath the table. And it is also showing additional blood spatter that was caused. The location of that blood spatter, since it goes under the table, and the size and shape of those blood stains showed me that the table was also moved back into place after the incident.
Is that the victim's phone there in the bottom corner?
Yes.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 46.
So this is a close-up of those rose petals and leaves that are leading from the doorway to the sitting room from the hallway of the house.
State's Exhibit 45.
So that is the view of the sitting room from the hallway, just again showing those rose petals and leaves.
So that's the hallway looking towards the front door?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 43.
So this is a photograph of the hallway while standing in the living room, just showing how some of those flower petals go into the hallway, and also the discarded pair of sunglasses that was located in the hallway as well.
State's Exhibit 47.
This is a photograph from a further point in the living room, again, just showing that entryway into the sitting room in the hallway.
So inside, that is the sitting room in that room.
Correct.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 51.
So this is a photograph from on top of that console table sitting in the sitting room where the victim's purse had been located. And it's just showing that some of the rose petals and stems had made it onto that table.
State's Exhibit 52.
This is showing the victim's purse that I was just referencing, and showing that the rose petals were also inside of her purse.
Ms. Ford, approximately how many murder scenes have you processed?
Say close to 150.
You ever found flowers near the body?
No.
And I'm just gonna go back really quick to 52. To the location of these flowers, were there some found inside her purse?
Yes.
And inside the items on top of the table?
Yes.
It's Exhibit 53.
So that's just another vantage point from the sitting room of all of the rose petals and the leaves that were located in that doorway.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 54.
So that is a blood stain that was located on the wall by the curtains on that front wall of the sitting room.
Were the curtains opened or closed?
The curtains were closed.
55.
So that is a close-up just with scale of that blood stain. That blood stain to me appears to be what we refer to as a transfer stain, meaning that an object or thing with blood on it touched a surface that did not have blood on it.
56.
That is a close-up of one of the gray sitting chairs next to that window on the front side of the sitting room, just showing the blood drops that had gotten into the surface of that chair.
57.
This shows those blood drips that I was referring to earlier near that gray chair. The reason that those are so significant is because they are farther away from that initial pooling that we saw underneath the couch. So what that means is that the shape of those blood drops tells me they're about 80 to 90 degrees, which means that an object with blood on it was directly over that area of the floor when that blood drop was created.
58. Where is this in that room?
That is over by the wall where those curtains and windows are located.
And that's the same, you're talking about the angle with which this blood was most likely transferred. That's different than what you were saying the drag marks were in the earlier exhibits.
Yes, drip stains are created by a blood drop just falling in motion from gravity, kind of if you had a nosebleed and the blood was just falling out of your nose. Because that area of the living room was so far away from the initial blood pool, that was not caused from the incident. It was most likely caused, again, like I said, from an object or a thing.
I would object to the opinion testimony that's being offered. I mean, this witness has not been offered as an expert, nor do crime scene techs get offered as or qualified as experts. The pictures all speak for themselves, so I would object to opinion testimony being offered.
She's testified to her experience in processing hundreds of these scenes and the training she's had. While this is not being offered as expert testimony, she's speaking to her rationally based perception of the angle that these blood droplets came from. As to Mr. Moyer's concern, it's right for cross-examination if he wants to offer a contrary opinion or pry into why she derives her opinion, but she's simply speaking to her experience.
I'm going to overrule your objection. It's noted.
So as I was saying, those blood drops were most likely created from an object or a thing that was in that area.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 60.
So that is showing a clump of hair suspected to be the victim's that was found in an area of blood in the sitting room.
Is that area of blood what you described as the drag marks?
Yes.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 62.
So that is a blood stain that was located on that interior side of the front door. That is once again what we refer to as a transfer stain, meaning that an object that had blood on it touched a surface that did not.
Finally, State's Exhibit 66.
So this is a photograph of that front sitting room again, where you can see the victim that's located at the end of that drag trail. And additionally, another smaller pool of blood, just signifying that wounds were still bleeding at that time.
So you spoke to flowers that were found at the crime scene. Did you collect those and identify those?
I did.
If I showed you pictures of those, would you recognize them?
Yes.
Show defense counsel what's marked as State's Exhibit 85 through 93. Showing you what is State's Exhibit 85 through 93. Are those photographs that you took of the flowers, or some of the photographs that you took?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, this time the state moves into evidence, State's Exhibit 85 through 93.
No objection, Your Honor.
Objection 85 through 93 comes into evidence.
show you State's Exhibit 86.
So that is a bundle, those are bundled stems with a rubber band that were located underneath of that orange pillow in the living room.
So that rubber band was on those stems,
Yes,
on collection.
yes.
87.
That is just a different view of those same stems showing the leaves.
'89.
So that is a close-up of one of the flowers that was found on the sitting room floor.
You said wildflower.
Yes, it is a wildflower.
That's
Correct.
not a rose.
No,
State's Exhibit 90.
that is just a close-up of that same wildflower, just showing the coloring on it.
I'm going to expand on that a little bit. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 93. Are those the same stem?
No,
So the stem on the right is not a rose?
no, it's a wildflower.
State's Exhibit 90.
Just another close-up of that wildflower.
Approximately how many of the wildflowers did you collect?
I'm not sure.
6, say several.
Yes.
In your processing of the house and looking through everything, did you find any vases,
No, I did not.
containers for flowers?
No.
And in processing that house, I assume, did you take several collections for potentially DNA testing or blood testing?
Yes.
What about fingerprint lifting?
Yes.
Now, if someone's wearing gloves, do they leave fingerprints?
No.
After you process the scene, what are your next steps upon leaving Kane Road?
So I secured all the evidence that I collected, and then the next day I responded to the autopsy.
Okay. Did you take some pictures of the autopsy?
I did.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 109 and 110. Approaching you with 109 and 110. Are these two of the photographs you took at the autopsy?
Yes.
What do they show?
They're showing the decedent's hand, left hand, which contains her engagement ring.
Your Honor, this time the state moves into evidence, State's Exhibit 109 and 110.
Without objection.
Objection, what I'm not
What are your duties when you're at the autopsy? What kind of things are you doing there?
So at autopsies, we take additional photographs of the victim and their injuries, as well as collecting clothing, DNA swabs, otherwise known as buccal swabs, fingernail clippings, head hair samples, and pubic hair samples.
Did you collect buccal swabs and fingernail clippings from Ms. Parcell?
I did.
If I showed you those collections, would you recognize them?
Yes.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 94, 95, 96, and 97. showing you 94, 95, 96, and 97. Starting with 94. What is 94?
94 is the fingernail clippings from the victim's right hand.
And could you describe for the jury, when you're taking these fingernail clippings and autopsy, what is that process like?
So we have a sterile set of nail clippers that we remove from the packaging. We then place a piece of paper towel underneath of the victim's hands. I use those fingernail clippers to clip the clippings from her left hand. And then I do the same process with a different paper towel from her right hand. Those are packaged individually. And then the fingernail clippers are packaged and submitted as well.
And is that what you did here
Yes.
with both her right and her left hand with respect to 94 and 95?
Yes.
What about 96 and 97? What are those?
So these are the buccal swabs that I collected from the victim at the autopsy.
I know we've had some testimony to that effect, but what exactly did you do there to collect those?
So we take a sterile cotton swab and we swab the inside of the person's cheek to collect those cheek cells and get DNA from them.
You collected 2 of those?
I did.
All right, at this time, the state moves into evidence. State's Exhibit 94 through 97.
No, I object to the introduction at this time in that the chain of custody has not been established. These are fungible items, so it would not be proper until the chain is established.
Will you be putting them in later to another witness?
We'll have testimony for another witness, but she is the collector of these items.
Well, until that time, they'll just remain armed.
Understood.
Put them in.
On taking these samples, being the fingernail samples and the buccal swabs, what thereafter do you do with them?
I take them and I submit them to our property and evidence section.
Presumably for testing?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have no further questions for this witness at this time.
Any cross-examination?
Good morning, Ms. Ford. I just have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
Just about those flowers that were talked about quite a bit during your testimony. First off, the ones that you testified are not roses. Was any determination made as to what particular species of flowers, what kind of flowers they were?
Just wildflowers,
When you say wildflowers, what exactly do you mean by that?
things that you could just find in someone's yard,
Okay,
just wildly grown in a field.
okay, and that's just based on your training, or is that based on just your experience of just knowing about flowers? over
Just
the years?
experience about flowers, yeah.
Okay, and the way they were positioned in the house, they were just kind of randomly scattered throughout the house, right?
They were scattered, yes.
Yes, I mean, they weren't in any kind of arrangement or pattern or anything like that.
Yep, they were just scattered.
Okay, one moment, please. Oh, and I'm sorry, just to be clear, when I said scattered, we're talking about the roses and the wildflowers. They were just randomly scattered throughout the house, right?
They were scattered throughout the front sitting room area, yes.
And so they went basically out into the hallway just a little bit, but it was mainly in that area where the deceased was found. right?
Yes, there were some in the front of the sitting room, and then there were some located near the decedent as well.
Okay. And again, not in any kind of pattern or arrangement or anything like that?
No.
That's all. Thank you.
No redirect, Your Honor. We would ask to recall this witness at a later time.
And that would be allowed. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Eric Turner.
Please stop at the end of the bench, sir. Please place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Please be seated. Please state your name for the record.
Eric Turner.
And Mr. What is your rank?
I'm a deputy.
Deputy.
Yes, sir.
And who do you work with?
The Greenville County Sheriff's Office.
And what do you do for the Greenville County Sheriff's Office?
I work in the school enforcement unit. I'm a school resource officer for several elementary schools in Greenville County on the east side.
And is that typically called an SRO?
It is.
Is that a
Yes,
school
sir.
resource officer?
Yes, sir.
Deputy Turner, I'm going to refer you back to October 13th, in 2021. Were you working that day?
I was.
And were you called out for 122 cane break?
I responded out there. Yes, sir.
Can you tell this jury how you responded?
Sure. I was in between schools. I had just left one. Let me go back. At the time, I had 4 elementary schools. So I had just left a school and was actually headed to Buena Vista, right near where the scene was. And so on my way, the call came out. I was close by. I said, hey, I'll run by there and check on it. It's right there at my school. I just want to make sure there wasn't any threat towards my school. So I responded there, notified dispatch that I was on the way.
About what time did you arrive to the location?
Within, I don't know the exact time, within just a few minutes of the call coming out, I was right behind the first arriving deputy. He was already out of his car.
And once you got there, what did you do?
I stood by with a gentleman later identified as Mr. Post and spoke with him while Deputy Robinson and his trainee went inside to check the residence.
And did you learn that the victim, Christina Parcell, had a daughter?
I did.
And what was your role in regards to her daughter?
So as soon as I found out that she had a daughter, I asked, do you know how old she is, where she goes to school? And he goes, actually, she goes to Buena Vista right there. That being my school, I immediately switched roles and went to, I've got to get to the school to make sure that the school is safe. He gave me just a little bit of background, family background. So I was under the impression, hey, there may be an issue with this child. So I stood by for just a few more minutes and then I left and went to the school to make sure that everything was okay. Prior to me leaving, I actually called our front office at the school and asked, was this student there? And she said, yes, she's here. I said, do not let her leave with anybody. I want the school locked down until I get there. I'll be there in just a minute. So the school handled their protocol, did what they were supposed to do. And then I arrived and made confirmation that she was there, she was in a classroom, and she was safe.
So, so as soon as you found out about Christina Parcell's daughter, you arrived at the school.
Yes, sir.
And when you arrived there, did you talk to anybody?
Just the administration. And they confirmed back to me, hey, she's in the classroom. She's good. I'm like, let's leave her there. I don't want anything to disturb her normal day until we figure out what's going on.
And then how did y'all decide when and how Christina Parcell's daughter was going to leave?
We kind of discussed what was going on. I told them, as far as I was concerned, just let her have a regular day. There's no need to take her out of the class. and let's just let her proceed with her day, leave as normal. I spoke with a couple of the investigators, and it was determined just she can leave with the family member like she normally does. They walk them up to, it's called the front path, goes out of the front of the school, and they walk home because they live right there. And so we just allowed that to proceed on as normal, like she does every day.
Please answer any questions. Ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
May it please the court. Deputy Turner, you had a body worn camera that day, did you not?
I did, sir.
And did you take steps to record some of the activities that you engaged in or around Cambridge on that afternoon?
I did. As soon as I got out of the car, I believe shortly after getting out, it was on.
So what time is Buena Vista let out of school typically?
2:15.
Okay. And so, maybe it's a silly question, but on that day when school was let out, Ida would be coming home, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And being a school resource officer, you're familiar with issues related to children's attendance at school, is that correct?
It's really none of my business. If the attendance clerk brings it up, I may do something about it. But
Deputy Turner, if a student at Buena Vista, let's say she didn't want to go home,
Mhm.
would the law make her go home?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
I'm just asking if he knows that.
I mean, it has happened before, not with me.
But if a student says, I don't want to go home, I'm not going home, must the student go home?
Again, we're going to look into it, probably contact DSS, get them involved in it, our investigators, our crimes against children investigators, and figure out what's going on, why this child doesn't want to go home, stuff like that.
That's further, Your Honor.
Okay, any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
It's now a good time to take a little break.
The next witness is going to be quiet leave.
Okay, you may step down, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a morning break. Again, no discussion about this case amongst yourselves or anyone. And again, thank you for your service. Enjoy your break.
take us a little bit or two, and we have to feel both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. I'll flip over, but yeah.
How about now? Better? Is that hum gone?
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Tina Parcell.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Grab this water in that pitcher. There's Kleenex if you need.
And I will need water.
Just push the button on top.
Thank you.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Christina Parcell. I go by Tina.
Ms. Parcell, where do you reside?
I would prefer not to give my home address, but I do live in Greenville County.
Greenville County.
Yes.
And what is your relationship to Christina Parcell?
She's my younger sister.
And so, can you tell this jury a little bit about y'all's relationship going back to the 2000s and kind of taking us through that?
Sure. I mean, she was 2 years younger than me, so we were close. We were different people, but we were, close in age, close as sisters. Early 2000s, she'd gotten married for the second time. I got married for the first time. We were both living our lives. We were close, but not intertwined, I guess would be the best way to put it. And we were friends, not best friends, but we were friends. We were still, young enough where all of your childhood, younger, older sister relation, all of that baggage hadn't quite gone away yet.
And did she ever begin a relationship with John Mello?
Yes, she began dating Mr. Mello, I believe, around December of 2008.
And in 2008, where were y'all living?
2008, I lived near downtown on Glen Street, right behind Cleveland Park. My sister lived at that time, in her home in Greer with her estranged husband.
And how long did Christina Parcell and John Mello date?
They broke up, to my understanding, October of 2015, so just under 7 years.
And during that time, did she have a child?
She did. She had my niece.
And when was your niece born?
June of 2012.
And so during the time in which Christina Parcell was dating John Mello, what kind of relationship did y'all have?
So they began seeing each other, again, just based off of my sister's papers and all of that sort of thing. December of 2008. I'm the kind of person I have to put things like in place and time. So December of 2009, my dad had his first stroke when he was 51. And within a year, so April or May of the next year, my sister wrote a letter cutting off contact with our whole family, saying that she had reached a new place of spiritual love and needed to only have true and pure love in her life, etc.
And so around 2009, did you see her very often?
I would see her less and less in 2009, and then beginning in 2010, she cut off contact and we didn't see her for 4 years.
So from about 2009 to 2013?
2010 to 2014, we didn't see her for 4 years.
And did y'all have the occasion to reconnect?
My sister reached back out to my parents July of 2014. My parents found out they had a grandchild. That my niece was 2 years old. My sister began reconnecting. She reached out to me. We met for, I don't know if it was lunch or dinner, but Freddy's Custard and Easley was the first time I kind of got to see her and my niece again for the first time in 2014.
So during that time, did you know where Christina Parcell was living?
She lived at a house at Easley on 3rd Avenue or 3rd Street. I don't remember avenue or street.
And is that where she brought home her daughter?
Yes, my understanding is Aida lived with her full time. The photos I've seen of that time period, she had a room, there were photos there, they lived together.
And so she was raising your niece during that first couple of years.
Yes, and all the court documentation follows that as well.
And during that time, did you have the occasion to meet John Mello?
Not during the first few years of my niece's life because we didn't have contact. I met him maybe a time or two from 2014 to when they broke up in 2015.
Now, did they ever live together?
No, he was living with his wife at the time.
So around 2014, 2015, you and your sister sort of reconnected?
She reconnected with the whole family, correct.
And did Christina Parcell and John Mello ever engage in disputes over who had rights to their daughter?
For years, yes.
About when did that custody dispute begin?
They broke up sometime in October of 2015, and I know that she had a family court deposition in March of 2016, so almost immediately would be the best I could put it.
So about the time y'all reconnected, she was already engaged in disputes with John Mello over the custody of her daughter.
I don't believe that I don't believe they had begun in 2014 when she first started reconnecting with our family, but within that next year, shortly after they broke up.
So from that point on, were you, I won't say involved, but were you aware of the dispute, and did you support your sister during that time?
Well, sure. Not financially, emotionally, or, because we had been estranged for 4 years, that is, it sounds so trite. It's a big hurt. This is my baby sister, and I'm trying to find a way to put her back in my life. So even though she was going through this custody battle, I was also kind of trying to get over my hurt feelings with her. So we interacted, but we weren't, again, tied at the hip best friends at that point.
And so as time goes on, did the custody dispute continue?
For years, yes.
And did Christina Parcell begin a relationship with Brad Post?
Yes, she did.
About what time did she begin that relationship?
Again, based on documentation I've seen in her effects, within a few months of ending things with John Mello.
So around 2015?
Yes.
And so pushing up to 2020 timeframe, did your relationship with her grow closer?
Yes, in January of 2020, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma, which is scary. And you dropped something. It's scary. It's aggressive. My sister and I met for lunch, and we're making a plan for how are we going to get my mom through this. If something happens to mom, how are we going to take care of our dad? He's had multiple strokes. And during this lunch, she looked at me and said, I really want you to be a bigger part of my life and my niece's life. And so we started consciously choosing to be more involved with each other.
And at that time, where was everybody living?
So at that time, COVID, I was sheltering in place with my estranged husband in my marital home in Greer. That's awkward, but it was. My sister, again, she rented a duplex. So when she had visitation with my niece, they would do those visitations in the duplex. And then when she was not living in the duplex, she spent her time with Brad Post.
Okay. And up until about 2020, did John Mello and Christina Parcell share custody of Aida?
Early on, I hate this phrase, but it's the only one I can really know. They had a gentleman's agreement early on about custody that suddenly nobody agreed to, so they went into court. John had primary custody. My sister had visitation, standard visitation every other weekend, weeks during the summer, time on birthday and Mother's Day, at the holidays. I think it's Richards Brown. I don't remember the name.
And so, and then during all this time, was there litigation going on between the two?
Yes, multiple times.
So I'm going to take you to about October of 2020.
Yes.
Did John Mello leave the country with your niece?
Yes, he emailed my sister and said, we won't be here for the next visit weekend, can't make it to the next visit weekend, something to that effect, and missed the court-ordered scheduled visitation. Didn't know where or why necessarily until shortly after, when we discovered they were out of the country.
And so in October of 2020, where was Christina living, that same duplex?
So no, in, again, March going to April of 2020, I'm sheltering in place with my now ex-husband, so super great. I decided I didn't want to do that, and I'm getting an apartment for myself. And my sister had just said, I want us to be closer, and her lease on that duplex was coming due in that spring of 2020. And I told her, I'm getting an apartment. I can get a 3-bedroom apartment. I clearly am a army of one and don't need a 3-bedroom, but if I got a 3-bedroom, then you could have your visit weekends with me, and we can spend time together. We have a playground, have a pool, et cetera, et cetera. So summer going into fall of 2020, my sister had her visit weekends with my niece in my apartment. And then she, again, was living for the most part with post non-visit weekends or non-visit weeks.
And was Christina Parcell working during this time?
Yes, she was a vet tech.
Was she a full-time vet tech or a...
No, at that time she was part-time.
So in 2020, y'all discover that your niece has left the country with John Mello.
Yes.
Did this sort of set off a new set of litigation as far as the custody dispute is concerned?
Yes, she filed a rule to show cause in family court under the then agreement that she had, because they had reached an agreement. He was in violation of that agreement. Rule to show cause was, the family court equivalent of you broke the agreement. Once we determined where he was, and she had already spoken to family court, her lawyer, Greenville County, tried to reach out to SLED, tried to reach out to the FBI. Once we discovered where they were, started investigating, how do you get someone back from a foreign country?
And was she dedicated to try and get her daughter back?
Every day.
So what did she do?
Once we've finally figured out that there is a Hague Convention for child abduction, not just war crimes, but truly for child abduction, reached out to the State Department. Her first contact was Zach, and then the second contact was a woman named April Conway. And essentially you go through this entire application of the circumstances. You have to provide the court orders, the existing orders, that funnels up through the State Department to, they call it the central authority. So the U.S. Central Authority then reaches over to their counterpart in whatever the country is, because this happens for all of these countries that are a part of the convention. And then it goes down their chain. In this case, it was Italy.
And when did she start that process?
Oh, we found out where they were late October or early November. So probably November, possibly December of 2020.
And again, how did you find out that your niece was in Italy?
Her father posted a photo on Facebook of her standing in, think like a cobblestone plaza type situation. It was nighttime. There was a banner on the wall behind her that said the name Rovigo, Italy. And once we began searching down that rabbit hole, we found an online news article.
So were you having any contact with your niece at that time?
First time my sister got to speak with my niece was Christmas Day of 2020. So it had been 2.5 months.
All right, so you mentioned this Hague Convention. Did Christina continue to pursue that and in fact have some hearings in Italy regarding I guess, the ultimate custody of your niece?
Yes. So when you go through this process with The Hague, I am not an expert, but this is one of those things that kind of sticks with you. Since it goes through the central authority, essentially that other country, their government is acting on your behalf. So the equivalent of Walt in Italy was representing my sister. It's not that she had to hire an attorney. The state or the nation of Italy was doing it because this is all international agreements and arrangements. All communication was done to her through the State Department. So they channel up, it goes over, it comes down and back and forth. The State Department let her know that a hearing had been scheduled for February of 2021 and that she could attend either virtually or in person. And she called me to let me know. I was at work. She called me and I asked her if she wanted to go and she said yes. And I asked her if she wanted me to go with her and she said yes. So I bought 2 round trip tickets that day.
And did y'all ultimately go to Italy for a hearing?
We flew out of Atlanta on Wednesday, March 10th. We arrived in Venice, Italy at the Marco Polo Airport. The things that stick with you. We arrived around noon that Thursday. Court was the morning of Friday. We flew back to the States that Sunday.
And were you successful in getting your niece back?
We were nothing at getting my niece back. There was no decision reached in that trip in March. They said they would deliberate and they would reach out with more information.
Now, when you were there, did you get to see your niece?
Did I lay eyes on her? Yes.
Did you get to speak with her?
And again, this is just based on what happened, not I know the rules of Italy. But when we were there, they said the mother has to go in, the father has to go in, and the minor child cannot go in. He brought her to court and she was not allowed to go in the courtroom and she had to stay outside of the courtroom. I couldn't go in because I wasn't a party. She was now an unattended minor in a foreign country, which is, again, not great. And they asked if I would watch her. His attorneys asked that I not speak with her. That wasn't a court order. It was just, hey, can you sit here and watch her and not say anything?
And was John Mello there as well?
Yes, he's the one that brought my niece into court for that hearing.
So did y'all ever return back to Italy again?
My sister returned to Italy. So this was in March of 2021. She again received notice from the State Department it felt like forever, of course, but a few weeks later, either end of March, beginning of April, there's another hearing. Again, you can attend virtually or in person. She said, I want to go in person. I asked if she wanted me to go again, and she said, no, I'll go by myself.
And so did she fly to Italy?
She did fly to Italy, give or take tax day.
And was she successful in getting the return of your niece?
At first, there was no decision reached, and they said you can leave and come back when we decide. She opted to stay, and a few days later, I can check my records for actual dates. A few days later, they let her know that they had decided to repatriate. Italy repatriated my niece to my sister. John Mello and my niece were brought to a police station. Aida was given to my sister. My sister then had to wait a week to get a replacement passport for my niece because hers had expired when they were in Italy.
While Christina was over there, did she have to hire bodyguards?
We had 2 bodyguards. When we were there, we weren't allowed to, because again, COVID, we weren't allowed to take public transportation. We weren't allowed to sit down in restaurants. So we did have 2 people that were hired to both provide some protection for that day in court, but also to get us from point A to point B while we were in court. And she had the same staff were hired when she went back.
So what day did Christina and your niece return?
April 22nd of 2021.
So when they returned, to what residence did they initially go?
They started living with me full time in the apartment that we discussed. The lease on that apartment was up in the middle of May, so I'd already started making arrangements to, live somewhere rather than renew the lease on the apartment.
And so did you eventually secure another location?
I had made an offer to buy the Canebrake home December 17th of 2020. I'd already been trying to buy that house for 4 months.
And did y'all eventually move into 122 Canebrake?
We moved into 122 Canebrake on May 14th of 2021.
So when once y'all moved in, you and who all lived there?
I was in the master bedroom, a nice tan with wood trim and a bay window. My sister was across the hall in a not great yellow bedroom. My niece was down the hall from her in what came as a hot pink bedroom. And she was thrilled about that. So it was the three of us. I had chosen this home. It was large enough. There was an ensuite. You saw it in the walkthrough. The salmon colored in the back had its own full bathroom, and that was going to be where my parents could live if they needed to in the future. So it was the three of us.
So you talked about this custody dispute, let's call it before John Mel and your niece went to Italy,
Yes.
and now we're past that. During this time frame up until May of 2020, how would you describe the dispute, this custody dispute between Christina and John?
It was active until the moment she died. There were still hearings while he was in Italy. He did not return to the United States for the, I guess it was 5 months, 3 weeks that they were here, almost 6 months. He would attempt to retain counsel or did retain counsel, though it attend a hearing on his behalf. There was a hearing with regards to when could phone calls happen.
Did y'all ever fear for your safety or anybody or your niece's safety or your safety?
We wouldn't let her play outside by herself. It is a beautiful neighborhood, an exceedingly safe neighborhood. I mean, kids everywhere. So it's not that the neighborhood wasn't safe. We just didn't want her to be playing by herself. We didn't want her to get taken. The front window, part of why we always left it open was so we could see the front yard if she was out there.
Did John Mel ever do anything that made y'all feel unsafe?
Can you be more specific with your question with regards to place and time?
Around that time.
Around that time, I can't say if it was John Mello or not. I know that my employer received an anonymous packet full of John Mello and my sister's family court documents, and I know my sister didn't send it.
About the end of June and July, did you do you remember Christina and Brad Post receiving some envelopes?
Yes, I didn't. Many envelopes. It was kind of a flurry of activity as to had all of them arrived in our neighborhood, his neighborhood, the guardian, her attorney, her employer. It was.
Were you aware of the contents of those photos?
Yes.
I mean, of those envelopes?
Yes.
What were the contents of those envelopes?
If it were something that existed in South Carolina, I would call it revenge porn, but apparently that's not illegal here.
So they were
naked pictures of my sister.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 1 for identification purposes only. And I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 1A and 1B. to ask you if you recognize these photos. And I'm sorry to have to show you these to you.
Yes, that is my sister, Christina.
And then I'm going to show you what's marked as States Exhibit 6, envelope States Exhibit 6, and ask you if you recognize photos 6A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Yes, those are all my sister.
So, y'all received these about June and July of 2021.
Yes.
Now, did your sister go to the police?
Yes, she went to the police. She went to a postal inspector.
In regards to the photos, how do you know that's your sister?
I'm going to try not to be. I recognize her, having known her her entire life. I recognize her haircut. I recognize her tattoos.
And can you give this jury a time frame of when those photos were taken?
Based on the length of her hair and again the state of her tattoos, I would say somewhere between 2010 and 2011.
And was that the time in which she was dating John Mello?
That's correct.
Now, so how old would Christina Parcell be?
She was born in 1980, so 2010 she would have been 30, 2011, 31.
30, 31.
Mhm.